Presence, the podcast for everyone interested in bodywork, embodiment, and somatic practices. I'm Andrew Rosenstock, your host and guide on this enlightening journey. With my expertise as a somatic movement therapist, yoga therapist, and certified rolfer, I'll merge clinical insight with real-world experience to enrich our discussions with our guests. Through engaging and informative talks, this podcast delves into mind-body paradigms, offering insights and strategies to empower personal growth. Your support is vital for our grassroots and lo-fi production. If you connect with our content, please leave a positive review and subscribe on your preferred platform. Your engagement helps us reach a broader audience and supports our mission. So thanks for tuning in today to Touching into Presence. Fasten your seatbelt as we embark on a journey to explore the transformative power of contemplative and somatic practices together. We're in conversation today with Dr. Joel Bennett. Joel is a president and founder of Organizational Wellness and Learning Systems, or OWLS, a consulting firm specializing in evidence-based wellness technologies to promote organizational health and employee well-being. Dr. Bennett first delivered stress management programming in 1985, and OWL's programs have since reached nearly 250,000 workers across the United States and abroad, including training over 1,000 facilitators and coaches. He's a primary developer of team awareness and team resilience, evidence-based culture of health programs recognized by the U.S. Department of Health and Surgeon General as effective in reducing employee behavioral risks. Team awareness resilience has been adopted by the U.S. National Guard as one of their flagship prevention programs. They've been used by municipalities, hospitals, restaurants, electrician training centers, small businesses, Native American tribal government, in rural settings, and in Italy and South Africa. In 2022, Dr. Bennett was acknowledged with the Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Wellness Institute and internationally with the Positive Leadership Award from the Positive Leadership Institute. He earned his bachelor's degree in psychology and philosophy from the State University of New York, Purchase, and his MA and Ph.D. in psychology from the University of Texas, Austin. Dr. Bennett has co-authored and authored 7 books, including Raw Coping Power, Heart-Centered Leadership, and Your Best Self at Work. And his Google Scholar page provided links to over 30 peer-reviewed scientific studies. He was previously on the board of the Academy of Management's Spirituality and Religion Interest Group, MSR, and the board of directors for the National Wellness Institute. He provides keynote speaking and continues to train coaches and facilitators in team, culture of health, and resilience workshops. Continuing on with the theme of our last episode, today's conversation is a little bit different in the flow structure than the previous norm. And Dr. Joel and I, we just kind of got off running, and it was almost as if we were two friends catching up. I originally had planned to talk more about him and his history, but the conversation was just so smooth and in the flow that we didn't get time for that. I'm hoping and planning to have him on again for a prequel of sorts. In the conversation today, we discussed different body therapeutic modalities, the nature of my practice, the importance of presence and mindfulness, the concept of safety in bodywork and massage, personal growth and self-awareness, and the concept of open-mindedness. All right, so without any more ado, I bring you our conversation.
Hello.
Hey, Dr. Joel.
Finally.
Finally, yes.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, I don't know where to begin. I'm, I sent you a list of some experiences I've had with different body therapeutic modalities. But to your point, it's not just about the physiology. And it's more about the, I like Stanley Kellerman's model a lot in terms of somatic reality, which I think I don't even know if you can purchase that book anymore.
I have it. I have a few of his books. You can buy them on used websites, but yeah.
It's this idea that the body, and every time I talk about the body wants to move into a position. It's so fascinating, It's so fascinating, this thing, like, oh God, I am so aware of the way, so the experiences that I've had have been so profound one of the core pieces of work that I did in my 30s was Heckler's Lomi work with a therapist who was really trained in that. So it was at any given session, I was either on the table or off the table, depending on how the therapist was working in the mind-body space. That it wasn't about only the body.
Mm-hmm.
And at any point, there was a fluidity between what was coming up on the table and what might need to be processed in a conversation with the therapist, or starting off in the chair speaking and then feeling something and the therapist catching that, watching how my body was and saying, let's work with that. And I had never experienced anything like that there tends to be a bifurcation in therapeutic modalities. You're either on the table or off the table. And that's been my experience. So when I saw what you were doing, I thought that's the experience that I have. And I have not, there was a point in my life where that's what I wanted to do. I actually applied to go in a summer internship with Heckler, and it never fulfilled itself. My career path went in a completely different direction, but I still get as much body work as I can across all kinds of different modalities. So I'll stop there.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I read your list, including like Rolfing and structural integration, and this is actually one of the reasons I sort of started the podcast, was to better inform what exactly is Rolfing, and truth be told, within our community of actual Rolfers, there's not a consensus, and there are those who believe it's really just it's not just the physiological, but it's like we have to stick to the recipe, do this. And there are those who believe that are sort of looking at, well, what is this this human being and how are they moving through the world? And if you can understand that, anything could theoretically be Rolfing if you're bringing it through this lens of embodiment. And there's a big disagreement within the community. And as with most things, even similar to what we talked about before, those with the strength, those with the stronger egos, are going to always win because they're going to push down and they're so sure they're right. And those who are much more embodied are sort of also like, I mean, all right, like, I don't agree with you, but like, good luck with that then. And I mean, I'm sort of in between because my ego's still too strong. And I'm like, no, but I want to make a change and it's going to work without the recognition of, well, it's failed the last 300 times. But I'm a bit insane in that way because I do believe in the power of it. But yeah, I mean, what you were saying, what I sort of have figured out through blending different I guess you could say modalities, but they all really point to the same place of beingness. And when I started to study philosophy more and read like Heidegger, I was like, oh, this is the same thing as well too. This is exactly the same sort of thing. Or Merleau-Ponty in particular spoke a lot to me as a student of Heidegger, but also bringing the sensual realm in. And so they're all sort of looking to the same thing. And if they're looking to the same thing, they're just different ways around. There's actually a quote by Dr. Rolf or about her where someone said, oh, Dr. Rolf, why are you in such a bad mood? Because she looked sour one day. And she said, well, people keep saying I'm all about the tissues, and that's not true. It's just all I can get my hands on. And I think like there's all these beautiful stories about her. And just like with any, whether it's Zen or even with Christianity, any sort of introspective practice, they all have meanings that have another meaning underneath it. And if we stop at the first meaning we get to, we never really digest that other one. But if our ego's in control, we get that. We're like, I understand it. All right, And what she's saying there is actually like you have to kind of keep peeling the onion until you find out there is no onion. Yeah. I mean, and there is, but there both is and there isn't. So yeah, I guess one of the things that or my beliefs are now, and maybe you'll appreciate this, is I don't actually think the issues are in the body. I think the issues are in the nervous system, which is a body and a mind. And so Bessel van der Kolk's work is really valuable. But what I find when I work with people who've seen him or seen other stuff is they get stuck in the construct of this is where my pain is, that this is this, or the other psychosomatic stuff of my knee means this. And I'm saying, no, it just means you have something going on. You don't have to get stuck in that other idea, because that map may be accurate, but may not be. We don't know if you have emotions in your knee, but we know right now there's a signal. So let's follow the signal and see what might there be. That makes some sense?
Well, there's a lot. You just said a whole lot.
I do that.
I mean, you talked about, I'm going to just reflect, you talked about ego, non-ego, nervous system, physiology, layers and no layers. So there's all those different pieces which speak to the, for purposes of the conversation, what might be called a transdisciplinary or transpersonal view, a multi-level holographic view, just for the purpose of the conversation. You're attuned from having done the work and the training and the education and talking to so many people that there's the paradigm is really a multi-paradigm. It's important to not get locked in, is what I'm hearing overall.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I could riff on that by saying that there's the anatomical system, and then let's take two others. There's chakra system and the meridian system. And once you move from the anatomical to those other systems, you're moving more into energetics, and there's less of a separation between body, mind, spirit, if you will. So I'll stop there and say that your system helps to guide how you do your work, how one does.
I think. I think, and that's the case for all of us. Our system is the way. I mean, there's the Korzybski quote of "the map is not the territory," and our system is the map. And what I'm essentially trying to help people get to is what I'll sometimes say is a mapless map, right? Or like, because there's a goalless goal, and so my map is. All systems are inherently flawed. My map is flawed to an extent, at least conceptually. The place that is pointing towards or from, or there really is no direction there, but we have to rely on direction as a way of conversing about it, is mapless. It's prior to conceptions. I mean, even like when you mentioned the chakra, and then also the meridian, I always want to say, well, whose chakra system? Because the 7 chakra system is a invention of the 19th century. There's not a text of it that existed prior to a mistranslation in a text, and then emergence through Carl Jung's work, populating it and then re-importing it back in India. There's lots of chakra systems in different schools, and they're all kind of different. And so there's and same with the meridians. After the Cultural Revolution, there was a shift of sorts. The meridian system is largely the same, but I have a friend who's a Chinese medicine doctor, and he studied like 20 or 30 different schools. And he's always like, well, if you follow this map, you do that, but there's a cross. And it's like, well, so which meridian map? And to my point being saying that they're all still maps. They're all still partly conceptual frameworks, and there's value in that. And there's also limitation in that, and we can get stuck in it.
Well, going back, so you mentioned Heidegger. So as a counterpoint to this part of the conversation,
please.
because there's the sign, there's the thing, there's being in and of itself. There's being intrinsic to being, and being present to being in that existential sense, which is mapless. There's beyond thought and entering into whatever you want to call it, the gestalt, the wholeness of this life that we have. And then there's systems that can only at best be poor reflections of that. So I think that's a core to what I'm hearing you talk about in your work, is that you're moving more and more and more away from being tied to a paradigm or a system, and more to being present in being.
Yeah, which is a great way of sort of tying how we even got connected, was a sense of presence, which is why your assistant Cynthia wanted to connect us, was about that. So I'm glad that there's a turnaround there. I'm also, I want to just sort of say, besides really appreciating this conversation and this whatever this is, I really appreciate you. I'm really appreciating you, and not just in what you're saying, but how you are saying it, but also how I'm observing you taking it in, sitting with it, moving around with it, because we are in video, so I can see you moving around a bit. And for me, it's a rather rare thing. In fact, most of the time people just tell me to shut up, but, or the other thing about, oh, well, you're too much in your head, of which I'm trying to get them to realize, no, it's actually not that, but I understand why it looks like that. So I am really enjoying this, but that my intent was actually to really praise you. And what I would say is clear to me, all the work you have done to be able to sit as you do.
It's beautiful. Thank you. And it's staying as much for me as I can in the hara and the center and in the gut is it's just the most important thing, because the world has whether it was the pandemic or not, has gotten so glutted with information.
And yes.
One podcast after another, one system after another, one person after another having claimed to find whatever that map might be. It's a proliferation. So that I appreciate your acknowledgement, because in the midst of all of that, we're less and less present to each other.
Yeah. And what I'm really taking from this about myself is the reminder that, well, I can share all the stuff I've shared. One of my things I still need to work on is I get really excited about this, which is great. But as I do, I am not in the same place of that horror, of that grounded. I go, all excitement is a sympathetic reaction, which is great in some ways. And I go up because I'm super into it. And this is great. And I'm talking to Dr. Joel. And yet I'm not fully present. Right. And so it's really helpful for me. And then, again, if we do make this live, which I think I might make part of it, and we'll see. And I have some ideas about that. But if I do, for people to kind of actually hear that difference, because what they will hear is your voice, your cadence, if they have the ear is finely tuned, they'll hear your embodiment. They'll hear you sitting on the chair, and then maybe not, and they'll hear me excited, which is great, but they'll hear my voice changing its speed, changing its tempo, which is not a good or a bad thing. It's a reactionary thing, and that's me losing the presence to some extent.
you're just being present to what's actually happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
you're sharing that you're aware that the excitement can move us out of the body, and that is an experience that's not the only experience. Excitement can move through and stay with the body. I mean, that was my understanding of Kellerman, was that energy flows all these different ways, horizontally, vertically, sagittally, in the body. And that my understanding of somatic reality is that we tend to get stuck, or we come up with certain signatures for how our body is supposed to handle all that energy. Right? And so if you went watching children, you can see that they just go and do whatever they're going to do. Any moment when they're, they get angry, they flop down, they get on the ground, they just kick, and they are, and then there's, when they're playing in the playground, you can see the lift, the propulsion of energy that takes them off the ground. And so my understanding of Kellerman's work, but I think it's another, which you're probably more familiar with, is that the body tends to trap us in our energy. And a lot of body work, I think at the real core, is to help unwind that. And I'll just give one experience. One of the things that shifted for me, I don't know when it did, but, I would get, general Swedish massage, effleurage, and it would be really great. But at some point I started to learn or receive touch for health, or, very subtle acupressure work. And then, of course, craniosacral up ledger work. And what I found over time is that I would have deeper releases outside of Swedish, much, just incredible unwinding, like explosive unwinding, just because the therapist was able to touch gently someplace. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can build onto that with a theory I have, actually. And so, as a Rolfer being the most painful people in the world, as we're known for, and my first massage was, I was spending time in Southeast Asia studying in Thailand. Thai massage can be really painful. I studied with a guy who was known for being the deepest guy in Chiang Mai. He actually tore muscle of mine when working on me, and that's where I was at the time, and thinking strong is good. And what I started to do when I moved more into the cranial work, or into the somatic work, or especially the biodynamic cranial, what I started to recognize was, if we think about it, if I'm putting pressure into something, it's going to have a feedback going on, right? And so if we had something very tight, let's say a muscle, but I think of a piece of cloth. If you have a tight piece of cloth and you go into it, it's going to have resistance, especially if you're going too quick or too fast. In fact, there's a saying Dr. Rolf said, that there is no too deep, there's just too fast. And so there's a resistance of sort within that. But if you have a gentle touch, and even if it's so gentle that the part of the nervous system that's tracking, and so a lot of my work is actually about watching people track me. And you can feel it when I'm even across the room, you can feel them sensing you out, especially if they've been through a lot of, we'll call them traumatic, whatever that means, lived through a lot of unpleasant experiences they haven't processed. Their nervous system is highly, highly aware of where everything is in the room, and it needs to be in order to keep the organism safe, right? And that's all subcortical, all within the brain, well, most within the brainstem. So I'm going in strong. It's going to feel great, but it's not that it feels great. It's that it feels, because it's sensorialness. There's the innervation of the nerves is going to be touch. Okay, this is good. But if we're gentle, we don't. I don't feel anything right then and that. But then I sort of picture it like we're sneaking into the house. The house doesn't even know that we're in it because it's kind of forgotten about us because it's no longer a threat. And then we're inside. When you're inside the system, you can make more change because you're not being watched as much. And that's how I kind of view the nervous system as like a watchdog of kind of, is everything okay? But of course, it's not that we're not safe, even in the regular massage. Safety is a learned idea or perception. And so the nervous system is responding out of previously learned ideas of what safety means, which is what a lot of trauma work is. The client can be, I have clients lying on my table, clearly everything's fine, and they cannot lie on the table until we kind of, whether I talk them through it or light touch, and then they sink in. So without even a lot of touch, why is it they relax? Safety gets built into their nervous system. So that's sort of the reason one of my theories is why were you getting it? Well, the touch kept also keeping your brain activated. Oh, this feels good. I like that. Oh, that's a spot. So we're kind of going on that. How do you sneak into that? It's always happening.
So at certain types of mindsets that a client comes into the work, as you have cultivated your practice, you're now more sensitive to their mindset and the safety kind of veneer that has to be worked with. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, maybe. It's tricky because for me to say that is purely my ego and thinking, and it's like, oh, well, look at me and that. And what don't I know? So I'm really always hesitant to go into saying that's what it is. I'll say what I believe. I believe that's what it is, part of that. And I believe a part of it is, as I've gone through my own process and seen my own blocks, or seen some of them, I clearly have a lot, of going and feeling into my body more and having an idea, okay, what actually is the feeling, not the idea of the feeling. And then coming into other phenomenological experiences. So in biodynamics, they have different tides that you can actually see or observe that are, I don't really like the word energetic. I don't know what that really means. And I think it's easy to conflate things together. So there's just some phenomenological experience that can't be seen until it is, can't be perceptualized until it is. And at this point, I've acquired various perceptual awareness that allows me to see whatever I see or perceive, and conversely, whatever I don't see, I still don't see. So I really don't. It's so easy to flip into that. He thinks he knows all, which I'm not trying to say.
But at the same time, I heard you emphasize safety.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was important.
Oh, yes. And again, safety is just a conceptual, like the person lying on the table who thinks they're safe, but their body isn't. And if I was to say to them, well, you don't seem very safe, which I wouldn't directly do.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, they're like, yes, safety as again, a pre-conceptual, but yet a lived experiential.
So let me respond, because I think what I was saying, when I'm experiencing that simple touch that leads to a rhythmic unwinding, I think, if I may say, you're right, that it's because at some level there is an experience of safety. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen at it rarely happens at the beginning of a session. It could happen.
Yes. Begin in the beginning, because what I do find is when people are more attuned to it, they come in and there is more safety. They're more familiar with it as part of it. And it's one of the things when I work with clients a lot, I will say, like, have you noticed like that you arrived a lot quicker today? Let's mm-hmm. check into that, which is really about educating them about their nervous system and their responses. And so they can start to realize, so yeah, I am able to rest on the table, right? Which with gravity, they should be able to like naturally do it, right? But of course we've learned things. What I sometimes say is we're just resisting life, which is what meditation, for me, this all comes back to meditation. What are we doing? But finding, how do we align ourselves with life, which is very easy to say. And then I found myself snapping at my wife. Why? Because she's done something I don't agree with. Why am I snapping? you know? And I like to use her as a lot of experiences. I love my wife a lot. And so that reaction is me not aligning with life. It's me saying life is giving me something that doesn't fit my paradigm. I am upset. Yeah. I am angry. I'm uncomfortable. And when I can say, well, wait a minute. Why am I uncomfortable? Oh, because the output doesn't match what I think it should be. Yeah. And what's your point? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Again, a lot.
I know that's what I do, but yeah. I only do that. What I'll say is I'm only doing that because I believe what I perceive of you is you can take that. And I'm kind of modulating off of that based on the availability and the space within and around you.
Then I should feel free to say, I'm glad you didn't say that you, were snappy at your wife simply because you're just a dick.
Oh, I am that too. That too. That is definitely part of it. That is part of it.
Right? Because I have the same thing going on.
No, it is definitely that. In fact, even today, some stranger on social media like tagged me in something and said like you're dirt or some sort of thing, and I said,
oh wow,
and I said you're right. Thank you for reminding me. Because I mean, first of all, I could argue with him, but I don't know. But B, like, yeah, I'm clearly like I'm not perfect, and my ego, my sense of self would love to think so because that's what keeps me safe. And then the reminder of, hey, you got work to do, dude, is like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, let's bring it back. So, thank you, stranger.
Who knows if that person's a dick too? Anyway,
right? Well, I think to some extent, we're all dicks at some point,
Yes,
and we're all like this is one of the things I believe at this point that there is no inherently bad person. Mm-mm. There are people who've learned stuff who are responding in ways, but they're not inherently bad. They might have different worldviews than us. They might have had horrible life in various ways, whatever that means, horrible in life. But they're just responding the best they can with the information they've had. And I will say, it's not that they couldn't even be doing any better, because I do believe if we could do better, we would. So they're doing the best they can. It just doesn't match what we think should be. And when they're acting like a dick, it's because when I'm acting like a dick to my wife, it's because I'm upset. Please don't, anyone listening to this go live, please don't hear me saying that's a justifiable reason. It's not. And at some point it is. I'm upset. I haven't learned how to better be. And so the reminder of that actually helps me be better.
I think, to summarize, if I can, or to kind of capture some of the tone of this, we're really talking about open-mindedness. There's a curiosity and allowing things to unfold and allowing the space to open or close at whatever rhythm it is. And that what I think I hear underlying a lot of what you're sharing is that the practice of presence and the practice of doing body work does require a certain amount of open-mindedness and a willingness to stay in the ground as things move. That's what I'm picking up.
Yeah, I always struggle with the term. Clearly I struggle with a lot, but I struggle with open-mindedness because I'll say, if you ask any of my clients who come in, they'll all say they're open-minded. I don't really know where the open ends, but I hear what you're saying. For me, it's that practice of inquiry.
Yeah.
Where is, if we're referring to the open-mindedness, where is the open and or contraction, the expansion or contraction of my mind in this moment? Am I in an open-mindedness could I be more open-minded?
Exactly. Yep. It's not a forever open loop. There's it's hard. It's the hardest work, in our organizational work. I often recommend the work of Edgar Schein and Peter Schein, their books called Humble Inquiry.
I don't know, though. I'll look that up.
Yeah, it's on the organizational development side, but it's fascinating because at that other level of work, what's happened is I'm using this as an analogy, which may come back to body work or mind-body work or presence. In the field of safety in workplaces, one of the big issues is, are employees being honest and forthcoming about their workarounds? If you're not following policy, if you're not wearing your goggles, if you're not wearing your helmet, for example, or if something happens and you need to fix it, but you're not fixing it according to the guidelines, you figured out a patch-up job. It's not that employees are not well-intentioned when they do that. It's more a matter of, are they willing to share what they did? Because it goes against the rules. And what's been happening is there's been I'm seeing greater interest in humble inquiry for issues of workplace safety, so that it's not a question of, did you follow the rules or didn't you follow the rules? It's more like, can we at least talk about what is happening and not feel that you're going to be punished? Because I'd like to know, in an open-minded way, if you will, without violating, just let's figure out what's going on here. And when you'd have that, a supervisor who's coming in the same way that you just described, like, I'm gonna get really upset here if you tell me that you screwed up, but bear with me while I get upset, because what's more important is we figure this out together than I fire you.
Yes.
It's the same kind of quality that you can bring into a conversation. Like, so honey, yes, I just realized I snapped at you. I got it. And I'm going to back off here. Can we work this through before you kick me out of the house? And it's a dance. It's really a dance.
Yeah, very much so. What I'm going to ask you, just because I actually do have a client now, is what I would like to do is to have another call, but actually have the call be more about you and what you're doing. And what I would probably do would be have that actually be the first call, and then sort of go through some of this and have this maybe be either a second part or some sort of way. Because I think there's part of the point of the podcast is really helping people, giving them information, and through various different people and methods and whatnot. And I hear so much wisdom, embodied wisdom. So I hear so much having worked through your own uncomfortable shit, which is lovely afterwards. I'd love to do to have another, we'll email and try to find a time for that.
That's great.
I'm sorry to cut it short.
I'm glad I got to meet you. I'm glad to hear from you. I'm glad you were forthcoming, and it's the best.
It is. You're great. I really appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, take good care.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
You can learn more about Dr. Joel at presencequest.life and organizationalwellness.com. If you're enjoying getting something out of these talks, we'd appreciate it if you'd leave a positive review of the podcast and subscribe to it through the platform of your choice. When you do this, it really helps other people find us, and we greatly appreciate your support. You can find out more about me, Andrew, at andrewrosenstock.com or rolfinginboston.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on our next episode here at Touching the Presence. Wishing you all a great day.